So next we're going to do if statements. Things are going to start getting a little bit more complex here, but don't worry, I'll make it simple. So sub if statement mania, I don't know, just a weird name. So an if statement is basically if your condition is true, then do this. So let's do this. A equals 1, the simplest if statement there is, and then if A equals 1, then always put then after the condition, and then always close it with end if, right? So if A equals 1, then message box A equals 1. There we go. So when we run our macro if statement mania, the message box popped up because A equals 1. But if we change it to 2 and run the same macro, nothing happens because A does not equal 2. So to counter for that, we can do an else. Put that after the if, else, message box, A does not equal 1, sad face. Whoops. I don't think you can do this parentheses. So A does not equal 1. So else means if the condition is not true, then do this. So if we run if statement mania, A does not equal 1. That's the simplest if-else statement there is. But then we can do this. We can do an else if. Else if A equals 2, then, whoops. Else if is one word. 2, then, do this, message box, A equals 2. Right? So that's another tier of the if statement. So when we run it again, if statement mania, A equals 2 pops up. So if we change it to 3, then the waterfall goes like this. Well, A doesn't equal 1, so that's not going to pop up. But A does not also equal 2, so that's not going to pop up. So that means our A does not equal 1 or 2 will pop up. So when we run the macro, if statement mania, A does not equal 1 or 2. So that's the simplest if, else tree possible. But what if we wanted to do this? If A equals 1 or A equals 2, then E equals 1 or 2, and then else if A equals 3 or A equals 4, then A equals 3 or 4, else A is greater than 4, right? So with the or, that means if A equals 1 or A equals 2, then do this. So you can do an or in there. So when we run our macro, A equals 3 or 4 came up because A equals 3. What if we want to do an and? Well, let's put a new variable in there, B equals 4. So let's do this. If A equals 1 and B equals 2, then A, B, 1, 2. And then let's do this. Else if A equals 3 and B equals 4, then A equals 3, B, 4. Else A, B, whatever, right? So what do you think is going to happen? Well, I think this one's going to happen right here. A equals 3, B 4, because A equals 3 and B equals 4. So that means if both these statements are true with the and, then do this. If both of them are not true, or if either one is not true, then don't do it. So if we run our macro, if statement mania, A equals 3, B 4 came up because A equals 3 and B equals 4. So when you use and, everything has to be true. What if we do this? A equals 3 and B equals 4, or C equals 5, then, right? Message box, yes. Whoops. I forgot the end if, okay? So if we run our macro, yes came up because I put this in the parentheses. If A equals 3 and B equals 4, so both those have to be true. Or if C equals 5, right? Then it comes up. So you can mess around with the parentheses and the ors and ands and combine them all for complex conditions that have to be met. If I change this to and, if A equals 3 or B equals 4, so if I put this as 6 and 8, it's not going to come up. You know why? Because neither of these are true, even though C is true. So you can mess around with parentheses and stuff like that for your if statements. But always make sure it ends with end if and then put then after all of your conditions. And that is how you do if, then, else statements. All right, we're at 13 minutes, 39 seconds. My stupid work computer always turns off after 20 minutes no matter what because of administrative purposes, but we're making good time.